رسالتي هذه حول أسرانا لديكم.
My message is about the captives that you have taken from us. Your friend in the White House has been following in the footsteps of his predecessor in many important issues, such as escalating the war in Afghanistan and unjustly treating our people that you took as captives. Most importantly, hero warrior Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The White House has stated its interest in executing them. The day America will take such a decision, it would have taken a decision to execute whoever we capture.
Osama bin Laden, one, not the only one of the voices in the Grand Jihad. This is In the Market. I'm your host, Janet Parshall. I want to give you our phone number because we're about to have a very important conversation, and I can tell you that because I've spent the last several days reading Andy McCarthy's brand new book, The Grand Jihad, and it is very unsettling, but this former federal prosecutor knows exactly what he's talking about. I get ahead of myself. Here's the way we're going to talk. 1-877-LIVE-675, 1-877-548-3675, or if you prefer an email, janetparshall@moody.edu, janetparshall@moody.edu. Andy has been very involved in the Department of Justice. He understands law enforcement. He is the man who led the prosecution team against the blind sheikh in the first bombing in New York City. He's a contributing editor with National Review Online. He co-chairs the Center for Law and Counterterrorism, which is a joint project of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and the National Review Institute. He's the author of Willful Blindness, and now the author of a brand new book that really lets us know that there is, if I can borrow from another author who talks a lot about terrorism, a stealth jihad going on. It isn't just over there. It's a framework that is being built here. And Andy lays out what I think is a seminal case for our needing to be very aware of what's going on. And Andy, I have to tell you, you started the book out in a most interesting way because you really grappled with the subject of language. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Do we call it the war on terror? Do we call it some kind of counterinsurgency? What's the language here?
Well, Janet, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I was of a couple of minds about the chapter in the book that you're talking about, which really does grapple with this idea of, should we call it Islam? Is it Islamism? Is it radical Islam? Is it something else? And, you know, the funny thing was when I got at the end of the chapter, I thought about maybe rewriting it and trying to shorten it and get to the point because it seemed to read like I was having an argument with myself. And then I thought, you know, maybe that's not so bad because this really is very difficult. The problem is this. There is an undeniable, for those who are willing to look at the evidence, connection between Islamic doctrine, the commands to violence in Islamic doctrine, and terrorism committed by Muslims. Now, that doesn't mean that the Quran and the scriptures don't say a whole lot of other things as well, but those commands to violence are there. And when Islamist terrorists use them to rationalize their atrocities, they're not lying about what the scriptures say. It really does say those things. On the other hand, we look around and we see that there are not just millions, but tens of millions, hundreds of millions of Muslims among the world's 1.4 billion who don't want to live in Sharia societies, who wouldn't commit an act of terrorism any more than you or I would, and also wouldn't support people who did. And my quandary is this. People look at those Muslims and they see that they are peaceful, tolerant people, and they want to then basically deduce that Islam itself must be peaceful and tolerant. And the fact that there are tolerant people doesn't mean that the doctrine is tolerant. So on one level, I think it's accurate to say that the problem is Islam in the sense that these are the doctrinal commands. On the other hand, I don't think tactically it makes any sense for us to tell people, especially we non-Muslims, it's not our place to do it, to tell them that, you know, your religion is awful, it's irredeemable, you have to convert, become something else, reject Islam. They're well-meaning, devout Muslims in their own way, and they are, in many ways, struggling for the reformation of a creed that they are devoted to. And I think we need to, those are our natural allies. We have to give those people some place to go. And for that reason, I conclude that we should call the challenge arrayed against us, Islamism. But I try to do that with my eyes open.
Okay, that's the word that I came away with from your book, Andy, and that was Islamism. And when you say that, you put it in the context, I think, of a worldview, an ideology, and I think that's extremely important. Now, calibrate this for us, if you will. How do we draw the distinction then between Islam and Islamism?
Well, this again is very important because it gets to the nub of it. I think, Janet, that the main thing is separation of the spiritual and the secular realm. We have what I would call sort of non-Sharia secular Muslims. It doesn't mean that they don't have a spiritual life. It means that they don't think that the spiritual life has to control all of human existence. They have, like our Christian notion of rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's and unto God what is God. They have a notion that, you can believe what you believe in the spiritual realm, but they reject the notion that there is a creed which is called religious, even though it's really a full circle social, political, and legal ideology. That this code that governs that full comprehensive system needs to command every aspect of human life. They can divide the spiritual from the secular. I don't think Islamists can or would. And look, they have a very good argument that if you separate the spiritual from the secular, that's not Islam anymore. And that's the great debate that has to be worked out in the Islamic world. But for our purposes, I think that we need to be cultivating the people who don't want to live in Sharia societies and who reject the premises of Sharia that can't be squared with American democracy.
Yeah, really and truly winning hearts and minds, as the saying goes. Let me take a break. Andy McCarthy is with us. His brand new book is entitled The Grand Jihad, and you are going to want to ask Andy questions. When we come back, I want to talk about dawah. I want to talk about jihad. I want to talk about the language that's very important in this entire attempt to radically change the world. 1-877-LIVE, 675 is our number, 1-877-548-3675. I'm your host, Janet Parshall. This is In the Market. More with Andy McCarthy after this.
The politicians in the White House were practicing injustice against us, and they still are, especially by supporting Israel in its continued occupation of Palestine. And the United States across the oceans thought it was protected from the rage of the oppressed until our reaction was loudly heard at your home on 9/11.
Now, you understand that this is just one voice in a chorus of voices promoting jihad, which is the idea of building a global Islamic society. Remember, Islam is not just a theology, it most assuredly is that, but it's also a socioeconomic system as well. So we've chosen parts of Osama bin Laden's postings on the internet just as being emblematic, but I think we do ourselves a disservice if we think that somehow if this man is eradicated, that somehow our problems with radical Islam will be completely eradicated. And I don't think that's the case. Andy McCarthy is with us, the author of The Grand Jihad, former federal prosecutor now with National Review, and also he's a senior fellow at the National Review Institute. Andy, to my point, am I right or wrong? I'm afraid if we put so much emphasis on just one man, I think, again, we think that that's the eradication of the ideology, of the eradication, to use your good word, of Islamism. Is it?